All right, and welcome back to the forecast card. Pretty shitty Saturday. The last few Saturdays have been so bad after I had an incredible one. Um, Ever since this YouTube channel started, I feel like these Saturdays have been terrible. But I'm really going to change up my strategy. I seem to be getting screwed a lot on these road favorites. Really going to start pivoting more to taking road dogs and home favorites. Start playing different kind of positions because the quality of teams that I'm seeing versus what I'm expecting is just significantly different. Apparently, there's some stat out there that road teams do perform significantly worse in February. So I don't know if there's any truth to that, but I'm starting to see it. Overall, adding up Friday and Saturday, we went 11 and 15 against the spread. Obviously not ideal by any means, but it is what it is. Hopefully we're due for a better day soon. And hopefully that is today. So let's get into the 3 games that I do like today. All right, game number 1, we have Rutgers head on the road to play Maryland. Now at 9.5, I actually think this line is pretty valuable here on the Maryland side. Now this Rutgers team, I think we're getting this kind of price because they've been playing better as of lately. They've had some pretty solid wins against Illinois, Northwestern, Nebraska. But I'm not fully sold on this team. Nebraska is levels weaker than Maryland. And this Illinois team, when they beat them 4 days ago, they were at home. This Illinois team has been really, getting shown out lately, especially on the road. Like it's still the same team that, obviously they're healthier now, but I don't know. I'm not buying into them yet. I don't think they're fully past their hump. And I think this Maryland team just matches up a little bit too well against them. Plus, we're getting Maryland in a rare bounce back spot. They're coming off a rough road loss to Ohio State. Now they're coming back on home. Rutgers is kind of in a letdown spot. Big win against Illinois, and now they're hitting on the road. It just seems like a spot where Maryland should be able to control the pace of this game. If you look specifically at their power ratings, at home, Maryland is a top 15 team. They've been really solid at home with the top 100 home advantage, and they played a pretty tough schedule. In conference, 15th hardest. Now this Rutgers team, again, they do have 2 lottery picks. Like they are a talented team, but their problem will always be their depth. And I do think this Maryland team is solid enough to be able to grind them out. This is a Maryland team that plays really, really well against great competition. And this Rutgers team, again, I just don't think they're consistent enough at what they do best for me to consider backing them here. If the line moved to like 11 or 12, I'd probably support them on the underdog spot. But if you look at their overall matchups here, this Maryland team is going to find their top 10 offense in college basketball. This Rutgers team, if they do have a weakness, it's going to be their defense. If you look at where this Maryland team likes to shoot, they typically shoot threes in near baskets. Occasionally they'll shoot a mid-range, but they mostly huck up threes in near basket. And they're going to have a lot of success here. 48th in near basket percentage to Rutgers 210th. Maryland is one of the teams that dominate boards, and they're going to have a pretty solid matchup here on the boards against a Rutgers team that is terrible on the offensive glass. Defensive glass, they're 311th, and giving up second chance opportunity percentage. Maryland's a top 50 team. So I think Maryland is just offensively going to find a ton of success in this game. The shot that they take the least is the mid-range, is the one thing that Rutgers has defended well this year. They do take care of the ball. I will give that to Rutgers. They're not a team that turns the ball over too much. But again, I think this Maryland team is going to be a problem for them, especially in their home court. On the other side, this Rutgers team, again, offensively, their offensive numbers really are not impressive. The only thing that they do well is offensive boards, and they will find some success here because they're a top 20 team at converting second chance opportunities. But offensively, they are barely top 100 in any category. And one thing that they do well is get to the line. And this Maryland team does not foul very often. They're ranked 16th in letting teams go to the line compared to Rutgers, who's top 25 in getting to the line. So they're not going to find any success with 3 points. And now that Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey are playing at a higher level, their boards have actually been going down because they're playing a lot more guard play, a lot more kind of rotations, and their big men are kind of playing more in the pick and roll position and not necessarily under the basket for rebounds. Now that kind of stuff's starting to fall. So I do think this might be a problem. for this Rutgers team. This Maryland team, a top 16 defense, they're going to make it really hard to score. They're going to basically have to get offensive boards, in my opinion, to find points in this game, while Maryland's going to kind of dominate. So, yeah, I think we're getting Maryland in a fantastic bounce-back spot. Going back home, Rutgers, letdown spot, big win, going on the road, playing in a pretty difficult arena. And I think in the single digits, this is a good spot for Maryland to just blow out this Rutgers team. So give me Maryland in the early noon game on the 9.5 spread. All right, game number 2, we have Arizona State head on the road to play Oklahoma State. Now this is one of those lines where I feel like I'm falling into a trap because every single thing points to Arizona State to me here, and so I'm gonna bet it. I really do think it's a phenomenal spot for Arizona State. This Oklahoma State team, I think they're playing over their head. People are kind of, I think we're getting a good line because, they played it really close against a really talented Houston team. But I really don't think they're really that good. If you look at their advanced stats, I think that Houston team was just playing with their food. You could tell that when they went on runs, when the game got a little bit too close, they would dominate, and then they would turn off the gas again. They were really never in actually any problem. If that game was in a playoff game, that would be like a 50-game blowout. I'm pretty confident. So I think in this case, we're getting an Arizona State team that's only 12-10. They're a lot more hungry for wins. We're getting them on a fantastic positional spot. So not only are they the better team on paper, but this team is 7-2 against the spread after a loss. One of those fails were their last game where they lost outright. But this is just a very rare spot where we're getting a really talented team on back-to-back losses, and for a team that is 7-2 against the spread after a loss on a back-to-back loss at home, and then they're going on the road where they'd be playing better. I think we're just getting them in a really, really great spot here. Now, Oklahoma State team, they are very gritty, especially at home. They have a pretty solid home advantage. But I just think this Arizona State team has just been significantly stronger for a longer period of time. This Oklahoma State team, other than their win over Utah and that close game against Houston, really what have they done that's been really that impressive? They got blown out by a ton of teams. They beat Colorado at home, a team that doesn't play well on the road. They got blown out by Utah the first time, blown out by BYU. Their win against Kansas State was impressive at home, but this Kansas State team, on paper, isn't really that insane. But they did have a fantastic matchup in that game. So, again, I don't think this team is really everything that people are thinking they are. And this Arizona State team, they started extremely hot to start the year, and they've been on a bit of a pretty rough streak. They lost 4 in a row, and then they beat West Virginia. Then they lost to Iowa State. Then they beat Colorado. Then they played Arizona and Kent State. But you got to remember, this is a team that's played the second hardest schedule in college basketball. They've been through the ringer, and I do think that whenever they have a chance to play a team that they should beat, they're going to really show up. So, yeah, getting them off 2 losses, going back on the road, where they're one of the better teams. If you look at their power ratings on the road, they jump from a 60th team to a top 50 team, and this Oklahoma State team plays pretty equally at home versus on the road. They don't seem to get too big of a home advantage. Last 5, Oklahoma State has looked phenomenal. But outside of the last 10 games, they're like a top 130 team. Meanwhile, this Arizona State team has looked like a top 60 team. So, if you look at the matchups, I'm not even going to go into them, but offensively, Arizona State is top 100 in every offensive category. Oklahoma State is outside the top 150 in every defensive category. I think Arizona State's going to score at will. They're going to get to the line a lot. They're going to get a lot of offensive boards. And on the other side, the Oklahoma State team is going to have a lot of problems. This is an Arizona State, top 40 defense. They are basically top 50 in every defensive category. And they're going to struggle. And this is an Oklahoma State team that really relies getting to the line to score. And Arizona State, despite having the third hardest schedule in college basketball, they are still, a top 100 team in limiting free throws. So against a weaker team, I think they're going to be able to really make this Oklahoma State team struggle. They're going to really have to create turnovers, which is the one thing that Arizona State does struggle with. They do turn the ball over a lot, but I don't think it'll be enough here. Again, everything is pointing to Arizona State, and the fact that they're getting its dog spot makes me a little bit worried. that I'm missing some crazy weird angle, but I just don't see this Arizona State team losing 3 in a row. Compared to the gauntlet schedule they have played, this team should look much less intimidating than some of the teams they just had to play. So give me Arizona State here on the short underdog spread to beat Oklahoma State on the road. All right, and third game, we have Ohio State on the road versus Nebraska. I'm kind of done fading this Ohio State team. I think Nebraska's in a letdown spot here. They just won 3 games in a row against some pretty good competition on the road. Now they're heading back home. Ohio State team, they've also been playing really well. They've had a couple bad losses, but this Nebraska team at home has not been incredible as home favorites. They're 4-6 against the spread. Both these teams are pretty equal against elite competition, but I think this Ohio State team has been proving that they're a pretty legitimate team, and I think they've looked significantly better than they have as of early January, where they had some pretty nasty losses. But again, they had 3 losses, but they were all by 2 points. They all would have covered this number. Their only bad loss here was against Illinois, who's a significantly better team than Nebraska, on paper, of course. But if you look at the power ratings, Nebraska, pretty solid home team. They have a top 100 home advantage. They're a borderline top 50 team. But Ohio State's a borderline top 25 team. They played the hardest schedule. If you look at their last 5 rating, they're being a top 10 team in their last 5 games in terms of adjusted net efficiency. And Nebraska, despite playing much better, they're just barely a top 50 team. So I think we're getting points here with a much better team here that does show up really well against this level of competition. Nebraska's played really well against borderline top 25 teams, but when they have to play an actual top 25 team, they have been struggling. They've been barely a top 100 team. That's the teams that they played the worst against. I just think I don't know if this Nebraska team is that legitimate yet. I think we're getting a really good matchup here for this Ohio State team, who's going to find a lot of success offensively and defensively. The only thing that does concern me a bit is that Nebraska is going to get to the line a lot, and they're a pretty decent free throw shooting team. But I think the difference here in Ohio State's shooting capabilities from 3 near basket are going to be too much. They're going to score up pretty quickly. If they don't turn the ball over a lot, it's going to be hard for any free points. They're basically going to have to rely on these free throws falling. Again, I'm trying to avoid taking these road teams, but every time I take home teams in these kind of matchups where I know one team is better and the model is telling me Nebraska should still win this game or Ohio State should still win, and I always pick the wrong side here. So I think Ohio State is the right side. Both teams, no team is due for a win right now. They're both playing pretty well. I do think that the fact that this line has moved the way that it has kind of makes me think Ohio State's the side. If you look at how this line has moved, it started really early as a pick 'em at -1, and now it's moved all the way up to Nebraska favored by 2.5. I think it moved a little bit too much. I think the original line was better. I think this is going to be a neck and neck game. It's going to come down to one team being up, shooting free throws. It's going to come down to that. I genuinely do. So I think Ohio State wins this game outright, but I'm going to take the points here. All right, and finally, in terms of leans, these are just the other games on the ballot. The St. Bonnie's game, I hate it. I think the line's perfect. I think it can go either way. I think St. Bonnie's has played much, much harder competition. Offensively, they're a really good team. Defensively, they're a good team. But this line just feels a little bit suspicious. I think George Washington is going to find success somehow. I'm not sure where I'm seeing it. But yeah, this Bonnie's team has been regressing a bit too much. I think they win this game, but I don't think they can cover the number. But my lean is them. But it would be I have this line at literally 5.5. So I think it's going to go either way. Xavier, and this line has moved to 2.5 just now as I'm looking. I would maybe lean differently at 2.5. I think this line is also pretty good. But I do think it's going to be neck and neck. It should be closer to a pick-em. Mostly because Xavier is going to get to the line a lot, and they're a really good 3-point shooting team. Nova is also a good 3-point shooting team, but it's so close that I think the better defensive team in Xavier is going to be a big difference maker. So I might actually end up adding this. I might bet it. You'll see in the pin comment if I add it as an official game. But if the line moves back to 3, I do like Xavier here. Temple, this game, again, this Memphis team, you don't really know what version of Memphis you're going to get. They can either win this game at 25 or barely win. But this Temple team, I think they match up well enough, and they're going to find success where they like to score. They're a team that sucks at shooting, but they're great at getting boards. So if they're working hard enough, they're going to get a lot of free throws. They're going to get a lot of offensive boards, and I think that might be enough here to cover the number. But offensively, Memphis should get every shot that they want to get. So not touching this game just because I think it's quite literally a coin flip. But if I were to lean, I would lean Temple big time. South Florida game, also don't want to touch it. I think Wichita State is underrated. I think they should beat this USF team pretty handily because their defense is pretty solid. But USF, you can never really count them out. They're a consistent team. And we're getting them at home. But they are coming off like a 3 OT game. Sometimes that's pretty exhausting. So, again, I might actually switch this to Wichita State +1. You'll see it on the screen. I'm editing my thing now. Yeah, I'm gonna change this to Wichita State +1. I think this actually ends up being a close enough game here, where South Florida gets a bit exhausted from the aggressive play from Wichita. So yeah, I'm gonna switch that to Wichita. And last game, LaSalle moneyline. This game also could go either way. UMass has been playing really well as of late, but on paper, LaSalle has a good matchup here. I think they should get to the line a ton, and they're going to get a ton of steals. So don't really want to touch this game. It's like LaSalle is the better team in my opinion, but UMass is playing like the better team as of late, so I'm not going to touch it. But yeah, I'm actually going to add semi picks here, so it ends up actually being 5. But if you can find Xavier at +3 or +3.5, I like them as an official play. I'm gonna bet it at +3 because I'm still seeing it on one of my books. So official play Xavier and Wichita State. I'm gonna take at +1.5. -115 on BetMGM. So yeah, those are actually both going to be official plays. It's going to be Wichita State and Xavier as my 2 last games. And that'll be everything for tomorrow. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.